Welcome to the IA on AI podcast, part of the Audit Podcast Network, where we bring you weekly updates on AI from the internal auditor's perspective. Here we go.
Hey, Trent. So glad to be with you again. Always enjoy our conversations. My name's John Thompson. I am the Senior Vice President and Principal at the Hackett Group, building out a AI practice, AI products, and a number of services and products around AI. I've been involved in this for 38 years. Started out way back when building data warehouses and business intelligence environments, and now got into AI in 1991, I guess it was. So started working at IBM, working with the first neural network utility, and have been on the forefront of it since then. So really been deep into Gen AI over the last 3 years, and very excited about the conversation we're going to have today.
And real quick, for those that are maybe listening and aren't watching the YouTube video, you can't see John's book, Path to AGI, in the background. Highly recommend it. Do a really good job of explaining technical concepts to people who aren't technical, especially kind of at an executive level. I think it's a really good read for all those folks. So anyway, with that said, so recently this has been probably the hottest thing in the news. And when I say news, I basically mean LinkedIn. It's kind of about my only source these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
But big tech firms hired 25% newer graduates in 24 compared to the prior year. And there are things that are pointing to that is because of AI automation. So that's from TechCrunch. And then I think it was this week or last week, Anthropic CEO, he said, and this is what I think I've seen everywhere, is that AI could wipe out up to 50% of like entry level white collar jobs over the next 5 years, which would just, I mean, it's going to devastate the economy if that comes true. So with that said, how should, John, from your perspective, boards, audit executives, how should they be planning for that kind of workforce disruption? I mean, I don't even know if you can plan for that.
Yeah, disruption's coming. There's no doubt about it. I don't really agree with what Dario said. He was kind of giving you half the equation there, or half the picture. Let's take another example. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Microsoft laid off 7,000 people, and there were a lot of folks commenting on that story. But what they didn't say in that story was that if you went further, or listened longer, or read more, however you want to do it, Microsoft also announced they're going to hire 10,000 people. So they were laying off 7,000 to hire 10. Now, why would they do that? They're doing that because they're laying off the people that are not AI literate and don't have the capabilities to become AI literate, or have publicly stated that they, would rather take early retirement or go somewhere else, or don't want to be part of this new AI enabled future. So a lot of what's happening is that the jobs that we used to do, or we used to have people do, I've talked to a lot of law firms and services firms, and many of those firms really have it wrong. Law firms, especially the older partners, sorry guys, I'm old too, so I'm not throwing rocks at anybody but myself. They're like, hey, people got to come in, they got to sit in the office, they got to be there for 80 hours a week, got to sit next to me, they got to watch me see how I do it. The world's changed, man. That's not the way it's going to happen.
Right.
So, those new jobs, or those entry level jobs, they're going to be different. And how those people learn are going to be different. So again, I don't agree with Dario. I don't think we're going to wipe out, the early career offerings. Just not going to happen. It's going to be different, but it's not going to be apocalyptic.
Hey, everybody, we're going to take a quick break from our guests. And if you need to get analytics or AI actually working in your internal audit department, or if you already have some of it, you feel like you're not really getting exactly what you need out of it, there's more, you're not getting that, go to the show notes, look for the Green Skies Analytics link, click it. On the website, there'll be other links that you can click that'll take you directly to a calendar to schedule time. It's literally 3 clicks to get the time scheduled, to get it figured out. All right, back to the show. That's what I was looking around to see. Okay, who is saying what in terms of where they are with AGI, and we can get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Where they are with AGI, how soon is it coming? And I'm going to hit on that a little bit with you. And so I looked it up, and it was like I just asked for like what's everybody saying or something to that degree about AGI and when it's going to be here. And so there was like 2028, 2030, 2050. And then I went, okay, I said, who's saying this? It was like the CEO of every big tech company. I was like, yeah, no joke. They're saying this. Like they have stakeholders, like they, like they're selling basically. But then I said, I like changed it and said, well, what about like the researchers who are like actually doing this? And it was a little different. And so I'm going to ask this in a different way. Probably obvious to everybody where I'm going, but let's take like an audit example. And the prompt is just something like go audit socks, go do the financial statement audit. And we can even narrow it down just to like the IT general controls. Go audit IT general controls for my company. And then I'm just going to sit back and I'll see the final output. I'll review it. I'll check things off, etc. I'm almost hesitant to ask you on any kind of prediction because they're just brutal. But if I did, well, I'm going to ask you prediction on that happening when.
Yeah, let's answer the whole question. When you go out and look at and listen to Ray Kurzweil, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, they're all saying AGI is here now, or it's going to be here next year. And let's define it. Artificial general intelligence, as defined by those guys and me too, is when AI is as smart as an above average undergraduate. And that means that AI has memory, it has empathy, it has intelligence, it has everything that a person has. And you know, like you said earlier, those people are selling. They got a dog in the fight. They're not objective observers. Now, if you go listen to Jan LeCun, and he's the head of AI for Meta and one of the preeminent researchers in AI and has been for decades, he says something around 2050 or something like that. Now, Rodney Brooks, the guy was the founding director of MIT's CSAIL laboratory, computer science and AI laboratory. He's the only person out there saying it's longer than me. I say it's 123 years. He says it's 130 years. So we're virtually on the same page, Rodney and I. And people, I do keynote speeches. I talk to people all the time. I have all sorts of conversations, and people come up to me or say to me while I'm up on stage, "Oh, you're an AI hater, or you're an AI luddite, and you're against AI." And I'm like, "No, I'm an AI optimist. I'm a practitioner. I'm a pragmatist. I build these things." So, when I look at, we've been working on AI for 70 years. And I love what Rodney Brooks says. If you look at AI, traditional foundational AI, it's been one of the most successful technologies we have ever built. I mean, it's impactful across all industries and all use cases and all, companies. Now, you look at AGI, and it's even harder to do. So it took us 70 years to get here. Now I know exponential curves and, quantum, computing and all that I get all that kind of stuff. I'm not a straight line projector, but I do think it's going to take us a long time to do it. And I think that's exciting because it's hard to do. And I like to get out of bed and work on hard problems. So, the smartest people among us are going to be working on this for a long time. I might be wrong. It might be 90 years, might not be 120 years, but it's not going to be 5. It's not going to be 6. So it's going to be a while. Now let's jump back to what you said earlier about, auditing SOX controls in your IT environment. I think that's going to happen almost immediately. That's a very well bounded, for the people listening or just listening and not watching, I'm drawing a box with my fingers. I think inside that box, you could do that almost immediately, because we have all the AI, we have all the capability to do natural language processing and to do constraints and controls and target it in different ways and have information wrapped around the AI so it does exactly what we want it to do. So those kind of bounded functions, that's immediate. That's today. That's in the next 6 months. I mean, if you and I got interested in it and said we were going to do it, we'd have that application done and dusted and tested within months.
And that's still going to be coming from more of on a vendor side than the individual
Yeah.
auditors with, I
Yes.
mean, I think on average, or not on average, what is it? Something like less 70% of internal audit departments have less than like 8 people or something like that. So
Yeah.
my guess is they're not gonna have the tech competency to be able to execute on that, and if they want that, they're gonna have to go to a third party to get it.
We used to say, oh, okay, well, RPA, I'm going to say something that's going to be controversial. That's dumb automation. If it always runs this way, RPA is your technology. But if it goes in and it branches based on different levels and different, conditions, you're going to have to do that through Gen AI. And the great thing about it is you can do it. When I sat down at EY and looked at the audit, practice, and they asked me about how much of it could be automated away, my estimate came back at higher than 90%. And they were surprised. They said, "You got to be kidding." And I'm like, "No, you gave me the playbooks. I can write all that in a Gen AI agent right now." So, the automation in tax and in audit is going to be very high. Now, are auditors going away? No, I'm not here to scare the audience. That's not the way it's going to be. They're going to be augmented.
And when you're talking about, like, if we said go audit ITGCs for SOX and thinking about all the different, I mean, the so many systems that are out there that are gonna get touched. I mean, just SAP, Oracle, and then there's a bunch of homegrown, there's this little one, there's certain clients when I was at EY, um, like high end on the Fortune 500, they had 60 in scope applications just for SOX and, literally thousands of applications otherwise. Um, and so is it your thought that right now, and I agree the technology exists. I've seen it from a few different startups now of, hey, go to audit the IT general controls relative to SOX. Are you saying that it's going to be kind of one shot and it can do it across all the platforms, or is what you're saying like it's going to go, yes, you can do that one for SAP, and then there's going to be another set of agents that, yep, that one can do Workday or whatever the individual system is.
That's what it's going to be,
Yeah.
because each of these systems are unique and different in how they hold data and how you access data. So you're going to have to build up these agent farms, these agent workflows, and you're going to be able to put the agents in different orders and say, okay, well, this firm, the information is held in Workday for
Right.
this application, it's an SAP for this application, it's an Oracle for this application, and you put them together in different ways, and they'll be able to run across all those platforms. It's just gonna have to be configurable like a Lego kit.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
put it together in different ways.
And that's some of the fear that I'm trying to alleviate, while also grounding people in reality that it is like that's here, but it's not going to be this again. Go audit everything and then just kind of sit back. Like,
Yeah.
it's still going to
No,
be almost individual ITGC. I know I keep hitting on ITGCs here, but in
hey, it's a good
for that,
example.
and then
Yeah.
you go to a different accounting process for a given industry, and things are going to be different there. So again, just trying to set the reality of where we are
I
right now.
I think that's a really good point to hit on, and a really good point to drill on a little bit to make sure that the audience is with us. Is that, AI can do some really interesting things. Gen AI, is everybody's all abuzz about it and has been for the last 3 years. Write me a sonnet for my, Labrador puppy. And it goes and does that. And it does a great job in that area. But, when you start looking at technical areas that have real requirements, you need to work on building it. It's just like any other technology, everybody. You have to build an application that does that. Now, we're moving into an era where we used to, get the requirements, we build the application, and the application ran, and 2 plus 2 was always 4, and it was a wonderful world. But, it's not magic. We have to look at these things, and we start from now, we're always going to start from the model. What is the model capable of? And then we're going to build up, and we're going to get into the requirements for the application. And that doesn't mean that that model can do everything. It can't write a sonnet and do SOX, auditing. Those are two different, radically different things. So when you say, we're gonna focus on this area, these controls for SOX, that doesn't mean that it's going to generalize over and do the other controls in a different area for, let's say, accounts payable or something like that. That doesn't work that way. You have to build these things for the purpose that you're interested in. So we have a long way to go. We have great tools, we have great technologies, we have great opportunities. We still have a lot of work to do.
Last thing, real quick, John. So KPMG, we've mentioned big four firms. I feel like audit podcasts, we kind of have to, right? They did a survey of directors and found that while responsible use policies for AI are common, formal AI risk governance frameworks not there yet for a lot of folks. Um, and really, one of their kind of root causes was basically boards, audit committees. They don't have the right expertise and structure to oversee AI risks. Is that how you're continuing to see it? I'm sure it's evolving, but a question I often ask any CAE I'm talking to is, do you have some kind of chief AI officer, something to that effect? Because honestly, there's not a lot of them out there, especially that are great. I mean, data analytics has been around for years, and they still hear these stories about super, super technical. They suck at the business, and it's not a good fit. So, anyway, how are you seeing that kind of role evolve?
Yeah, it's a great question, Trent, and it's one of those things that you get into. Yeah, it's just really intriguing. All the conversations I've had around risk management, it's like that. It's just like you said. You end up with people on the call that are risk managers or super technical people or business process people or people like me, nerds. And you try to get everybody to understand what's going on and what is risk in the AI area, and everybody's talking different languages and different words, and you walk away and think that was the least connective conversation I've ever had in my life. I don't think anybody understood anything anyone said. You just walk out and it's like everybody's talking past each other, but we will get there. Again, I'm an optimist. We will get there. And we made great progress when I was at EY. I spent a lot of time with the risk management department. And I think for the first 6 months, it was all just setting definitions. So we'd say the same words, and we finally understood what those words meant to each other. We weren't missing each other all the time. So, it's a classic case of over communicate and over define so you can actually get on the same page. It seems hard in risk management. And I think part of the problem is that people like me, coming from an AI technology background, we don't really care about risk. It's not something we ever think about. It's like risk. Oh well, our life is all risk. That's what it is. But then you end up in a room with an auditor and an accountant and a risk management professional. Their whole life is about risk. And you're like, do you care? And they're like, what do you mean you don't care?
Right.
So you almost have people from Mars and Venus and Pluto, in a room, and over time it will come together. But right now it's hard for people to even talk to each other about this.
Yeah. I think I might have asked you this before. The last time. I know you've been, what's the number? I don't know. Give us, how many podcasts have you been on in the past 2 years, 3 years?
Maybe 250. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
knew it was a lot. Yeah. Um, and I don't even know how many you listen to, but I know there's times where I go, man, I wish somebody would ask me this so I could talk about it, or go, it's not a really good fit for this audience. So I'm not going to try to interject that. Is there a question when you go on these that you're just like, I wish somebody would ask me more about this?
Yeah, I I I always no one ever asked me this.
What do they-
Um, and I wish they would ask me is that, are you really concerned that AI is a negative force in the world? That it is more disruptive and destroying than it is positive and accretive and aggregative. I mean, and that's not even a word. But people don't. I always hear about, oh, is Terminator coming? Is more jobs going to be destroyed? Are all the college kids never going to get work? But no one ever goes to the other side and says, what's the real upside here? What is the really, utopian, view of what's going to happen with AI? No one ever asked me that.
Thank you for listening, and be sure to follow the link to greenskiesanalytics.com in the show notes and schedule time to see how Green Skies can make the hype of AI a reality in your internal audit department.